What if I told you that our modern economy is basically built on the worship of an ancient, false god? Today, we're going to dig into the story of Mammon and figure out how a 2,000-year-old warning against greed somehow became the blueprint for, well, the world we live in now. You know, this famous line from the Gospel of Matthew, it's not really just about money versus spirituality. It's about something deeper, allegiance. It asks, who is your master? This fundamental conflict has really shaped Western thought for centuries, and honestly, it sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. Okay, so what is mammon exactly? Well, the word comes from Aramaic, and it just meant wealth, but its meaning goes so much deeper than that. Think of it as the spirit of a system where profit is king, where stacking up more and more stuff is the ultimate goal, and where human dignity often gets left behind. So it's not really about the cash in your wallet, it's about the system that wants your complete devotion. And that brings us to the first big question, doesn't it? How did an ancient vice, a warning against a false god, become a modern virtue? Seriously, how on earth did greed become the operating system for our entire world? What we're looking at here is a complete moral flip-flop. According to the source material, capitalism didn't just put up with the worship of wealth, it basically made it holy. Greed, which used to be a deadly sin, got rebranded as efficiency. Hoarding, a pretty obvious vice, was suddenly called security. And ambition, that became this new kind of piety. The whole ethical playbook was just turned on its head. So the really crucial point here is that this isn't just a system that allows you to collect wealth. No, it's a system that worships it. The source suggests that capitalism presents this idea of limitless growth as something that's not just good, but morally necessary, almost inevitable. It becomes this kind of sacred duty to just keep accumulating for the sake of accumulating. And listen, this isn't just about a few greedy individuals. It's about a system that's literally designed to reward that behavior. You have corporations that are legally required to pursue profit above everything else. You've got financial markets that reward quick short-term gains instead of long-term care. And what happens? Basic human needs, things like housing, food, medicine, they get treated like products to be bought and sold, not as fundamental rights. The very architecture is built to reward greed. Okay, so if we follow this idea that capitalism is a new religion, what are its rituals? The source argues that the worship of wealth didn't win by destroying the sacred. Instead, it just co-opted its language and practices. It started to look and feel like a religion. I mean, just think about it for a second. We worship at the altar of productivity, right? Sacrificing our time, our health, our joy. We get initiated into adulthood through the liturgy of debt, student loans, credit cards, mortgages. It's like a modern baptism into the system. We pay our monthly tithes with rent and compounding interest, like offerings. And we even make pilgrimages, moving across the country for a job. And we feel this need to repent for any moment we're not being productive. The argument here is that these aren't just economic things we do. They're acts of devotion. But hold on, what about generosity? Isn't that the classic antidote to greed? Well, the system has an answer for that too, and it's kind of a twisted form of salvation, an illusion of grace that offers a feeling of redemption without actually changing a thing. This is where generosity gets, well, inverted. It gets transformed into charity, which, according to this view, often just ends up being a great PR tool or a handy tax loophole for the ultra-rich. It becomes a performance of giving that almost never challenges the underlying power structures. In fact, sometimes it even reinforces them. It's a setup designed to make the givers feel good, but without actually changing the game. This quote, which is inspired by work cited in the source from Anand Giridharadas, really puts it bluntly. It suggests philanthropy can become a mask for hoarding, a calculated way to reinvest ill-gotten gains to preserve one's status. The idea is that it's not about sacrifice, it's about self-preservation. It's like painting the gallows in pretty pastel colors. It might look nicer, but the unjust structure is still standing right there. And this gets to the absolute core of the system's design. There's this one single relentless demand: more. There is no concept of enough. Profits have to go up, markets have to expand. Forever. Even a record-breaking year isn't good enough for next year. The goalposts are always moving, because that constant hunger, that's not a bug in the system. It is the system. So, okay, if that's the diagnosis, what's the cure? Well, in our final section, we're going to look at a pretty radical prescription from the source material. It's not about trying to reform the market, but about reclaiming a forgotten alternative. the commons. This is basically the counter-narrative. So where the logic of Mammon preaches scarcity, that there's never enough, the commons says no, there's sufficiency. Where the market is all about private hoarding, the commons is about shared stewardship. And where the market locks us into debt, the commons is built on mutual care and reciprocity. It's a completely different way of seeing the world. And hey, this isn't just some utopian dream. It's a reality that people are building right now, from the ground up. You see it in community gardens, in food deserts, where people are taking back their food systems. You see it in cooperative housing, creating stable alternatives to a crazy rental market. Or even tool libraries, where people choose to share instead of endlessly buy. The source says these aren't just little projects. They're powerful acts of defiance. They're like a counterspell, rewriting the rules of what we think is possible. Ultimately, the argument is that this exorcism has to be both spiritual and material. It means we have to break the spell of what we've been told is normal. It means refusing to bow to the system's metrics, like GDP or ROI. It means not worshiping at the altars of brands and prestige. It's really about breaking that powerful spell that keeps telling us this is just the way things are. So, in the end, the source asks us to see ourselves in a new light, not as consumers, but as stewards. And that leaves us with a fundamental choice, doesn't it? Will we just keep being consumers and competitors, or can we become stewards and collaborators? In a world that is so completely built on the logic of more for me, maybe the most revolutionary question we can ask ourselves is, what are we willing to share?